Always been a bit of a lurker, but I'm coming to the one place I think can help me now. Something seriously wrong in my hometown. I've always been an explorer, and after having spent most of my younger years being raised and educated in Ohio, I struck out on my own. After 5 years in DC and almost 1 year in Florida, I've been relatively happy with my choices. But I do miss Ohio in the fall time, cold weather and all. My family all lives in Tuscarawas County, which is a small county about an hour south of Akron. So it's never been an issue when I want to go home for a long period of time. And after living on an island most of the year, it's nice to go somewhere that has a large landmass for me to explore and hike and whatnot. Which brings us to 2 weeks ago when I called my mom and asked if she'd be willing to put me up for a week so I can come to see my friends. She, being a typical mother, happily obliged. We talked about the comings and goings of small town Dover, Ohio, and the typical neighbor gossip when she said, "The area is just changing." Me, being from there, dismissed it. Something was always going to happen, but it never quite materialized in my small hometown. I drove up a week later. Happy to be home and seeing family and friends, I spent the first 2 days bouncing all around the county. But one night I couldn't sleep and I hopped in the Jeep and decided to take a night drive. Driving like a bat out of hell across those winding roads till I ended up back in town. I stopped at a local Circle K for a pop. This is the first time I noticed something was off. As I walked out of Circle K and into the parking lot, I noticed a man standing in his front yard next to the Circle K. Just standing there, staring straight ahead at the empty street in front of him. I assumed maybe he had AirPods on or something, but he made no noise. Just stood, never once turning his head. I brushed this off and of course hopped him back to my Jeep. Once started, the radio blared to life louder than I had remembered having it. I turned it down and once again looked toward the man. He was still standing, but his head had shifted to the left and he was now staring at my car. Staring at me. I could feel it. Needless to say, I noped out of there really quickly and got to my mom's. Convinced myself that it was just a weird guy and fell asleep. The next day, I happened to drive past the house again and the man was gone. Though I half expected to find him there still staring ahead, I told myself to quit being paranoid and just enjoy my time here. 2 nights later, I was at my sister's and we were talking about it. I told her about the man I had seen and to my surprise, she said the same thing my mother had said weeks earlier. "Yeah, Zach, the area is changing." I asked her what she meant and all she said was, "Just is." After a bit more catching up, I hopped in a Jeep again and took off to Mom's. Driving through town late at night was always peaceful as the roads were usually barren, barring the occasional late-night driver or two. You tend to zone out except for when you see the random red lights. Something felt off and uneasy though to me. I came to a red light and that's when I saw them. The houses lining the street on the block before me had people standing in front of them. At least one person in front of every single house. All of them standing in their front lawns, uniform, staring straight ahead. I turned off the radio and rolled down the window and slowed down in front of one of the houses where 2 people, a man and a woman, stood. "Hey, you guys okay?" I managed to say. "Nothing." What's going on?" I stammered, trying to put some bass in my voice. Still nothing. Their eyes weren't even focused on me, just staring straight ahead. Their heads didn't even move. Screw this, I thought, and sped off. Further down the road I went, desperately trying to get to my mom's and shake the creepiness factor. However, as I continued and turned off the main street, I noticed that more people were out in front of their homes. It wasn't every house, but probably 1 out of every 3. All of them staring straight ahead. To my relief, my mother's street was not experiencing this. I ran into the house. "Mom, you gotta get up. Something's going on." "Zach, it's 12:30. What could possibly be going on?" I told her the story and she looked at me incredulously, and it was obvious she didn't believe me. I begged her to come with me and I could show her. I finally coaxed her out and we got into the Jeep, and I went to the areas where I had seen the people. No one was there. The streets deserted like they usually were at this hour. My mom was annoyed and complained about being pulled out of bed. I told her I knew what I had seen and that it was weird and something felt off in the town. "Zach, the area is changing," she said coldly, almost as if it wasn't in her voice. I asked her what she meant, but she gave the same answer my sister had hours earlier. "Just is." I pressed her for more, but she didn't say anything till we got back to her house. She told me goodnight and went to bed. I couldn't sleep. Something felt off and I felt as though those people were still out there. The next morning, I left for Cleveland, as planned, to see some friends over the course of 2 days. I stopped at Speedway to get gas that morning and was tired due to lack of sleep the night before. I went in for coffee and, to my surprise, the man standing behind the counter was the same man I had seen at the start of all this. I froze, unable to move. Does he not recognize me? I thought. No, there's no way. I walked up with my coffee and he looked at me before asking, "Anything else?" No, I stammered. He was different, fidgeting and tapping his fingers on the counter. So much movement compared to who I saw the first night. I had to say something, anything to him. I had to know if he knew me. "Hey, man, I think I saw you the other night," I managed to blurt out, my eyes avoiding his. "Where at?" he asked. "I think I saw you standing outside your house the other night around 11:30, I barely muttered. "Nah, man, couldn't have been me. I open the store and I go to bed pretty early," he replied. "Oh, must have been someone else," I managed to say, not really believing it. This was sure as shit the same guy. Lots of new people moving here, man. Don't know the whole town like I used to. The area is changing, that's for sure. As he said it, his eyes got very distant for a moment before shifting back to his cheerful demeanor. The words sent chills down my spine. What the heck was going on? My sister, my mom, and now this guy all had the same reaction with the same exact words. I grabbed my coffee and got out of there, ignoring his "Have a good one, brother," as I walked out the door. Being in Cleveland was wonderful for those 2 days, and I felt as though a giant weight had lifted off my shoulders. Life was normal again. My college friends and I went to the Cavs game and hung out and drank ourselves stupid, and overall had a great time. All of those weird experiences, while in the back of my mind, felt like a distant memory. Which brings us to tonight. My mom called me around 4 and asked if I was heading home. I told her I'll still be here tonight, but she should leave the door unlocked in case I leave late. I told her I'd text her when I left Cleveland prior to the 2-hour drive. I felt a bit of paranoia living the city. Something's off back home, right? Is my mind playing tricks on me? I did my best to push the feeling down, but I couldn't shake it. This ominous sense of dread as I rolled down I-77 to a place that now terrified me. I pulled off the interstate and onto the exit around 11:30. My anxiety was borderline overwhelming, like this impending sense of dread. I went past the gas stations and turned back into the town towards my mom's place, and I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Every house had people in front of it, all of them standing lockstep in their front lawns. I couldn't believe it. It was as if the road was a red carpet and they were lining it for me and my Jeep to drive down. No one moved. No one even acknowledged the car as it rolled down the street. They all just stared straight ahead. I have to get to my mom's and sister's now, I said, speeding through the quiet streets, the faces not acknowledging me, just the same blank stares. Fathers, mothers, children, everyone just staring straight ahead. What was this? Why the heck are all these people out here? I finally came to my mom's street and I saw what I dreaded the most. Her and my stepfather were in front of their home like all the others, standing there, straight-eyed at the street. I got out of the car and onto the street slowly, almost as if I was afraid of a sudden movement and that would cause the various neighbors to descend upon me. Hell, even my own parents. Who knows what the heck this is? Mom, are you okay? I asked in a hushed voice. Tim? Nothing. They just stared straight ahead. I was so scared in that moment. What was causing this? Why don't they acknowledge me? Jesus Christ, I'm her own son. Terrified and shocked, I grabbed my mom by the shoulders. We gotta get the heck out of here now, I screamed. She blinked. The first movement I had seen. Her head jerked sideways almost inquisitively as if she was trying to sort out what was happening. She opened her mouth and let out a slight gravely breath. The area is changing, she whispered. It wasn't her voice. It was a guttural, gravely voice. Suddenly I heard the sound of movement and the entire street was looking at me. All at once they opened their mouth and let out a wail. It sounded like... there's no way to describe it. Dozens of wails from these people, these neighbors. Like dozens of people were all crying out in agony, and the sound kept increasing, almost as if the whole neighborhood was all crying out in a torture scream. I ran across the front yard as fast as I could away from my own mother and jumped in the car and sped off, the radio off as I heard the screams continue. It was the whole town. They were all looking at me, their faces shifting as my Jeep sped down the road, but all of their voices projecting out this torturous noise. I had never heard of anything like that, and I prayed I never will again. I jumped on the interstate and got the hell out of there. I drove for an hour to Akron and checked into a hotel where I am writing this. I don't know what to do. Do I go back in the daytime? Do I call the police? I have to do something. My whole entire family is there. I tried calling my sisters and no one answers. I hope they're safe, but I dare not attempt to go get them now. Not until daylight. The area may be changing, but I'll be damned if my family is going to change with it.